I really don't want to read this. Sally Rooney, Conversations with Friends, but I have to, or I feel as though I have to, for reasons that I'll come to. Why don't I want to read it? Well, first of all, and this doesn't only apply to Sally Rooney, whenever there's a huge sort of trending wave around a new author, I'm going to wait a good 2-3 years before I go down that route and pick their book up. You know, I want to get clear of the hype. Now, as I say, that doesn't only apply to Sally Rooney, but, you know, when she was the darling of BookTube, like the reincarnation of Jane Austen, that wasn't for me. But, you know, as I say, that wouldn't automatically rule her out, me picking her up 2-3 years after the hoo-ha has died down. No, there's two main reasons that I don't want to read her. So this is the blurb from the back. Frances is 21 years old, cool-headed and observant, a student in Dublin and an aspiring writer. At night she performs spoken word with her best friend Bobby, who used to be her girlfriend. When they are interviewed and then befriended by Melissa, a well-known journalist who is married to Nick, an actor, they enter a world of beautiful houses, raucous dinner parties and holidays in Brittany, beginning a complex ménage à quatre. But when Frances and Nick get unexpectedly closer, the sharply witty and emotion-averse Frances is forced to honestly confront her own vulnerabilities for the first time. That's why I don't want to read it. You know, it sounds absolutely not the sort of thing I'm interested in. Ménage à quatre between young people, beautiful houses, raucous dinner parties, someone who's doing an aspiring writer, holidays in Brittany. No, not for me. No interest, I'm afraid. There are better writers, I'm sure, than her who I'm equally not interested in, such as the one who wrote the Neapolitan trilogy, quadrilogy, whatever it was. I'm just not interested in that sort of thing, really. But that's, again, not really pertains to her. It's just, you know, the two things that really put me off are, the first thing is she has been described, and maybe this is not her fault, maybe this is down to the critics, as the eminence grise of millennial writers. I absolutely loathe and detest this marketing trope of dividing people up according to their birth years, as to that determines their personality type, because they only do it. First of all, you shouldn't be, you know, grouping people together anyway. Secondly, you should definitely not be grouping people together in order to sell them stuff, although, you know, that's what capitalism is. And third of all, you know, that she's a millennial writer who writes for millennials is a strange backhanded compliment, because it seems to rule out that she would write for any group who weren't millennials, and I'm sure that's not the case. But the implication is she has a direct line to her generation, which is great, but the rest of us aren't invited. So that's the first reason. The second reason is she proclaims herself a Marxist. She was apparently born to socialist parents, and I saw an extraordinary interview with her on YouTube where she blathers on about Marxism. And I find it very hard to imagine that blurb that I read from this book of beautiful houses, raucous dinner parties and holidays in Britain has an awful lot to do with Marxism. In a way, it's actually the only thing that would make me want to read it out of curiosity, to see if in fact her Marxism percolates the book, or in fact if it's just performative, which I rather suspect. But anyway, I have no desire to read this book, but for the reason I'll go on to in a minute, I kind of have to. So in advance of that, if anyone hasn't actually read this yet, or if someone's willing to reread it, will someone hold my hand and buddy read this with me? I don't want to hate read it. As I said, I don't want to read it at all. But if there's any of my followers out there who have a way of communicating so that we can share thoughts on the book as we go through it, if we could knock, what is it, 300 pages? Yeah, 300 pages. If we could knock this off in 6 days, that doesn't preclude reading other stuff at the same time as a palate cleanser, I'd be very grateful. So please just leave a line in the comments below so that you consider buddy reading this with me. As I say, I don't want to go into it with preconceptions, although obviously I suppose I've expressed preconceptions, and I don't want to hate read it. Now, why do I keep saying I have to read this? So, I've written a book about first-person death, and it's called Solipsistic Conversations with Close Friends. Obviously, the title is alluding to conversations with friends of this book. I know nothing about this book other than what I've just learned from the blurb. I was aware of the title in referencing it by my choice of words, which, by the way, are absolutely apposite to my book. They are solipsistic conversations with close friends, and if the book gets published, you'll see why that paradox, you know, is seemingly self-contradictory, but within the context of the book isn't. Anyway, so I knew that in calling my book that, when and if it gets published, I'm going to be asked, well, how does that tie into this book? Are you a fan? Have you even read her? And as of this point, I haven't. But I feel that in order to prepare for my own book, and questions arising thereof, I need to have read this to at least sort of structure my own answers to those inevitable questions. So please, 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 Booktube, I'm begging, I can't face this book on my own. I really can't. So if any of you will hold my hand through reading it, I'd be most grateful. So thanks very much for hearing me out. Till next time.